What's up, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. This is going to be super fun today. It's been a minute since I've live streamed, so I'm really excited to hang out with you guys. And today we're talking all about video lighting. So if you are here and you're wanting to learn a little bit more about it, or you're confused by some things about it, we're going to be talking about a lot in regards to video lighting today. Recently, I posted in my community tab and on Instagram asking you guys about lighting and to send in your questions. And so today we're going to be attempting to answer it, and we're going to be doing some live demonstrations as well. I'm going to be showing you guys how I set up my YouTube studio, all the different things that go into lightings, like the background lighting and the key light, and what happens if your light's too bright or maybe your color temperature is off. We're going to be talking about a lot of that stuff today here in the video, so that by the end of it, you can have a nice natural looking setup for your YouTube studio. Let's get into it. All right, so welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the video. I'm super excited to hang out with all of you. Let's briefly check in the comments. What's up, Mike, Yinks, Modest, Zentro, AY, Digital Planner? Thank you guys for hanging out. I'm super excited to be, getting to do this stream with you guys and hopefully dive in and answer some of those questions that we have been talking about and that you guys have sent to me. So without further ado, let's dive into it, starting with this first question from John Paul Music UK. He asked, how would you make an LED panel a less harsh light source if you don't have a diffuser? So how would you make an LED panel a less harsh light source if you don't have a diffuser? And I think this is a common question. I picked this one specifically because a lot of times, you guys might go out and try to, get a nice RGB light, and it's, going to look really good, especially for background. But then when you go to light yourself with it, it's maybe a little too harsh because it doesn't have the same sort of diffusion as a softbox. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit of an example today using this little Aperture MC light. And first, before I show you what to do if you don't have a diffuser, I'm going to show you what to do if you do have a diffuser. And I think as you're doing YouTube and getting into content creation, you should get one. So I'm going to be using this 5-in-1 reflector, which is not very expensive. I've actually linked it down in the description. And on the inside of this 5-in-1 reflector is a diffuser. So that's really handy. It's part of the what you get with it. So if you have one of these or you pick one of these up, all you need to do is take this light and you shine it through this, creating a bigger light source. Something to understand about softness of light. It's not necessarily having a softbox or, any of that type of stuff that creates the softness of the light. It's actually making the light big. It's just creating a big light source. That's going to create softer shadows. So again, this is what the light looks like with nothing, pretty small and square. And then if you shine it against this, it gets a lot bigger. So I'm going to do this on my face real quick so we can see an example. Let me make this full screen for you guys. So looking at the face here, let me get it positioned well. Look under my neck. You see that line that this light is creating? Watch what happens when I do this. Focus is struggling, but that's okay. Boom. That line is way more evenly spread. There it is again. There it is diffused. There's the light harsh. There it is diffused. So if you don't have a diffuser, my first answer to your question would be definitely pick one up. Now, the next thing you could do is to pivot the light away from you and bounce it off of a wall, which is really helpful. So what I'm going to do now, for example, is turn off my key light. All right. So that was my softbox. There's a little square there, little white square. And I'm going to place this light where that was, right? So it's going to be about here. And you can see it's pretty harsh, really bright on one side, really dark on the other. But watch what happens when I turn it around and just simply bounce it off of this white surface. Boom. It's a lot more evenly lit. It's a lot more soft. And so that's a really good way to do it. If you have a white wall, or even just go buy a piece of white foam board or cardboard, pivot this around, bounce it off. And that's a great way to get, a nice softer light. Let me turn my key light back on. Boom. There we go. So hopefully that answers your question. And yeah, let me check on the comments real quick. What's up, Review for Nerds? Danielle, how's it going? Zach Sopak in the chat. Let's go. If you guys don't follow Zach, you need to follow Zach. Zach is the man, coming in with tons of awesome Photoshop tutorials, Lightroom tutorials, live stream content creation tips. He does it all. Super good photographer, videographer, longtime friend. Go check out Zach. All right, so now that we've kind of covered that first question, I want to move on to the next one. And again, I brought this to you guys through Instagram and Facebook. And so if you guys want to follow me on Instagram, it's at Ben Johnson Creative. A lot of times I'll post polls and questions, and I love getting to connect with you guys and talk with you. So if you've got questions, connect with me on Instagram, write them in the comments in the chat. We'll get to them in a bit. But I have a few other questions I pre-selected that I want to go through today. So on to the next one. How to decide when to use warm, cool, or neutral lighting. How to decide when to use warm, cool, or neutral lighting. This is a really good one. I think it's really an interesting answer to this question, because ultimately, I think this is something that a lot of people will have, just because there's so many options. If you get a light that's color temperature adjustable, and then you start diving into your camera and you realize you can change the settings there, and maybe you get a background light and it's RGB and you have all the color options in the world, there becomes a lot of options and it can be a little confusing. So I just want to break it down. And the first answer to this question, and really the true answer, is there's not really a right or wrong with this stuff. A lot of times it's up to the creator. And that's fun, because you get to decide when you want something warm or cool or neutral. And what do we mean by that? Warm, cool, and neutral. Well, let me show you. So first and foremost, I'm going to turn my background lights off so that we can just see what my key light's doing. All right. So when we say warm, we mean this. Okay, I'm probably looking a little yellow, a little orange, right? This is, warm. It's a, yellowy orange color. So that's one option. And then here we go. I'm going to go back to the cool setting, which for you guys right now probably looks pretty normal. But I'm going to change my white balance on my camera. I'm going to make this look really cold. Now I look really blue. What did I do? Well, I was at 5,600 Kelvin, and my light is at 5,600 Kelvin. And when those are in unison, everything looks normal. Let me change it back to that. Yeah, this is 5,600 Kelvin. My light's at 5,600 Kelvin. Kelvin's a fancy word. It's just the measurement. It's just a term, attached to these numbers. These numbers are intimidating or whatever, but just know a couple things. 5,600 Kelvin is going to be more bluish. 3,200 Kelvin will be more warmish. And you can adjust your camera to match it. So again, my light's at 5,600. My camera's at 5,600. It's balanced. The whites line up. Now, when I change my camera to 32, I look blue. But if I change my key light to match that with 32, it looks normal. It looks, fairly good, fairly normal. Let me go full screen for you guys. Looks fairly normal. And the reason this is because it's matched up, right? So now what happens if I bring in my background lights? Oh, wow. Okay. My background lights look white now. Before they looked kind of orangey and warm and cozy. Now they look more, clean, modern, a little sterile, maybe just a pure white because they're at 3200. This light's at 3200 and my camera's at 3200. All of those lights are white except for my light bulb. That I'm not changing that. That's just where it is. So, all that to say, we can completely change this. So what happens if I want to get, more of a blue color out of my backgrounds, right? Well, what if I changed my lights from that 3200 color and I make them 56? Okay, cool. Now I have a blue background because my camera is at 32. My light is at 32. That's on me. So my skin tones are more 32. But the background lights are 56 and the camera's interpreting that to be more bluish. So there's a lot of control. It's not that one's right or wrong. It's just you get to decide, right? So when you're trying to figure out how to do it, you just get to make those decisions. I would say the most important thing is to try to match up whatever value your key light is, which is the light lighting yourself or lighting your subject, that your camera is matching that so you get natural skin tones. And then the background lighting and other lights in your shot, you can kind of mess around with and change. So again, I'm going to get this set up back to how I had it, which I'll start by changing the background lights. So let's make that 32. Again, it's going to look white right now because my camera's at 32. And I'm going to make my key light 56. So now I look really blue. But all I have to do is change my camera settings. So I'm going to do that right now. And boom, there we go. So now it's that back to that warm, kind of cozy shot. And again, if I wanted to change these lights, right, I can make them 56 to match. Now everything's on 56. My camera, my key light, and my background light. And everything's white. And this looks pretty cool. Like it looks really good. I just wanted to intentionally choose to make the shot look a little warmer, to be a little more inviting, a little more homey, a little cozy, whatever. It's just an intentional choice that I made. So again, back to your question, how to decide when to use warm, cool, or neutral lighting. My thoughts are you get to decide. Just have the knowledge of sort of what to do and just experiment. Like I found out a lot of this stuff just by trying it, setting up my camera, messing with my settings, messing with my light, seeing what this does. And it's really fun. You get to really experience some different lighting stuff. And, it's a good way to sort of dive into that and try it out. Okay, on to the next question. Would love to see low budget LED lighting for a small spare room / bedroom. I don't have room for a big softbox, so I'm looking for decent results with 2 to 3 LED panels and a backlight for color. Love your channel, Ben, full of great tips. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. All right, so I get this question a lot. I don't have room for a big softbox, and I want to have good background lighting and all that stuff. I get it. I totally get it. And I've actually done a video on small rooms and stuff. You can find it on the channel. But at the end of the day, I think softboxes they can seem really big, especially when you watch some of the big like cinematic videos and the filmmaking channels and all that stuff. But I found a really good softbox that is actually pretty small, and it's linked in the description below. It's the Mount Dog Softbox Lighting Kit, and it's actually what I'm using right now with this remote. It's included. And the softbox doesn't really expand more than the stand. So really whatever light you're using, you're still going to need to pretty much put it on a stand. And this light doesn't really extend beyond the legs. So something to think about. I would look into this softbox. Now, the reason I wanted to highlight this question is a very specific spot, which is this looking for a budget, backlight for color. And so I'm going to dive into that because there's this really nifty little light, which is the Pixel G2 RGB pocket light. And this light is awesome. And I'm about to show you why. So let me go ahead and turn off these background lights. They're off. All I've got is that little light bulb and my key light, right? So watch what this light can do. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. I'll preface this by saying this light is about 60 something dollars, $70, which you'll see why this is a good deal. But I'm going to turn it on. Okay, it's in a crazy party mode. Boom. All right, so we've got the light on. What we're going to do is go into just a solid color setting like this, okay? I'm actually going to, just turn it to about there. All right, so check this out. This is lighting up my whole background. This little light comes with this stand and all this stuff, lighting up my whole background. That's at 50% power, okay? So let's turn it up even more. 100%. Boom. Plenty of light to get a good background color. You want to go crazy? It's got other colors. You can have a whole party in the background with this little light. Really good budget light. I've linked it in the description below. Definitely go check it out. It's great. Let me turn these background lights back on. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this video so far. I have not live streamed much, so I'm a little rusty with it. I'm going to check the comments. What's up, John Paul? Hey, what's up? Awesome. I just answered your question, so if you missed it, head back to it. Catch the replay. Catch the replay. Just spending a second to go through these comments. AJ has the LED panels from Elgato. They're very harsh. I personally haven't used those ones, but again, get yourself a diffuser or flip them around. Watch the replay. I showed an example on that. Awesome. All right, guys, let's go ahead and move on to the next question. Manny asks, how to manage natural lighting when you are in a situation to shoot at midday. How to manage natural lighting when you are in a situation to shoot at midday. Well, Manny, I've been in that situation many times. All right. It's a horrible situation, but there are solutions. For those of you who don't know, I am from Florida, the Sunshine State. I now reside in Atlanta, but I spent a lot of years creating content in the Sunshine State. I shot weddings and, portraits, all types of stuff, those midday beach weddings from destination couples. And it can be a challenge. I'll tell you, it can be a challenge. So how to manage natural light. The first thing that I would say to you is make sure really know your camera settings. All right. And so I'm going to do a little plug right here. But if you don't know, if you're watching this and you don't know how to do manual camera settings, please check out my free super simple camera settings guide at supersimplecamerasettings.com. All right. It's going to really just make your life a lot easier. I go through all the settings, ISO, shutter speed, white balance, aperture, video resolution, frame rates, the whole deal. If you are on the fence about switching your camera to manual, it's intimidating, please go check that out. It will help you immensely. Enough of that. So once you know your camera settings, the best thing I can say when you're trying to shoot in the middle of the day and it's super bright and it's really harsh and you don't know what to do, be a shade seeker. Stop, repeat, be a shade seeker. Look for shade. Shade will be your best friend. What it's going to do is create basically an area where the light's getting blocked out. Look for tall buildings, look for big trees, look for all types of stuff and find the shade. And then you'll be able to bring your exposure up. Everything's more even. The light's usually kind of bouncing off the ground and coming up. It's just a lot better than being in the harsh light. Okay. So be a shade seeker. And then also don't be afraid to use the light to your advantage. Try, getting like a vintage lens with no reflective coating and shooting into the sun. Use it as a backlight. Do some silhouette shots. Create harsh shadows intentionally. Treat it as it's like black and white and just try to like make cool shapes and shadows. Pose if you're shooting a couple or something like that. Now, if you're trying to shoot video, it can be a little tough. Again, just be a shade seeker. Also, you can get stuff like, big, reflectors and stuff to kind of block out areas if there is no shade around. So that's something to consider as well. Maybe bring someone with you who can hold up like even just a really big umbrella or like a really big object to create shadow for you. I would recommend shooting very, with a long focal length so that you can kind of like block out a bunch of stuff and just focus on a smaller area that you can control. All right. So those are a couple of things that you can do just to kind of like cope with the harsh sunlight. When you can, don't shoot midday unless it's cloudy, then it's perfect. But if you're trying to shoot midday, I would just whenever you can try to shoot later on. You'll get a lot better results, especially at golden hour or blue hour, all of that type of stuff. Okay, on to the next question. Noah asks, lighting for people sitting around a table, two people on one side and two people on the other. Interesting setup. I like it. This reminds me a little bit of That 70s Show. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it kind of reminds me of that. I hope that you put a camera in the middle where it just spins around. That would be awesome. But what I would recommend for that type of a setup is to do a very soft overhead lighting in the middle of the table. So for that, you'd want to get something like a C stand, and you'd want to get a very big, soft, softbox or softbox lantern, and that will really help put you in a good place to have nice soft lighting on all the faces coming from the middle. I think that would work well for that setup. Interesting setup. Would love to know what it is that you're creating with that. I think it sounds pretty cool. But on to the next question. When do you think, for example, the skin is too dark? How do you decide when a face is perfectly lit? When do you think, for example, the skin is too dark? When do you decide when a face is perfectly lit? Great question. I like it. And the easy example for this, and I get this question because it can be confusing. It's like, well, I've got this awesome light. I'm going to run it full blast to get the most out of it, and it starts to look too bright, right? Like this shot here, I'm going to go full screen. It just maybe feels a little too much. So how do you know where to kind of land that exposure at, right? So in order to answer this, I'm going to bring in this camera, and the short answer that I think will really, hopefully help a lot of you guys. I don't have my battery. Okay. Um, Never mind. I don't have my battery, but let me see. I'm going to make a text real quick, see if Michaela can bring me a battery because she's around. But yeah, so the short answer to this question is to use a histogram. And I'm going to show you guys here in a second if possible. But using a histogram, what's a histogram? Well, it's a chart that's built into the settings on the camera. Okay. So the histogram is really going to be very useful because it's going to tell you when your shot is overexposed or underexposed. So if you don't know what a histogram is, I would highly, highly, highly recommend looking up some videos on it, diving into your camera. I mean, even certain apps on phones will have a histogram as well. And basically, there's a chart. It has different lines that will help tell you. Thank you, Michaela. You are awesome. Where to land that exposure. So let me pop this battery in. It's so funny. I was getting everything ready, and I was like, "Oh, I should go charge this battery." And of course, I forgot to put it back in. So you win some, you lose some. Well, actually, you win some, you learn some. So that's good. All right, so I'm going to show you the back of this camera so that you guys can sort of see what I'm talking about in regards to these settings, okay? So let's see. You guys see that all right? Let me turn this exposure on my camera down a little bit so that you can see this better. All right. How is that for you? Okay. So you guys see this little chart here? Let's see. This guy. That little square with the lines, it looks all confusing. It's not too confusing, don't worry. So all you have to do, I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's overexposed. But first, note that the one side of it is the highlights and one side is the shadows, okay? So as I turn this really bright, we're going to go crazy, crazy bright, right? Look how that line is now all to one side. You see how it's all just sitting right there. It's overexposed. Those are the whites, the highlights, okay? So now I'm going to turn this all the way down Even crank my shutter maybe. No, I don't need to. All right, so you see now the image is too dark and you can see it on the screen, it's too dark. But see how all of that stuff is on the other side? So the goal is to keep this more in the middle. All right. So we're going to turn the exposure up just a little bit. I don't know, something like that. Boom. So that's the goal, is to kind of keep it in the middle. What I personally like to do is to kind of get the highlights just below peaking, so slightly underexposed, and that will give you a really good image. Let me go ahead and adjust my settings on here again. So to answer your question again, how to get the skin good and all that, I would use the histogram. I would set it to be just underexposed. Basically, like if it's overexposed, the highlights are going to be blown out. So again, if I turn this key light up, you lose detail here, right? Let me go full screen for you guys to see. So you lose this detail, right? You don't want to lose detail. You went for this nice expensive camera. You got the lights. You don't overexpose it and lose the detail, right? So if we bring this back down, boom. Again, I personally like to just underexpose it a little bit, because then in post, I can go back and restore some of that information if I want to. Skin tones should fall more around the, 80 to 90% range, even less. So just don't blow it out and you'll be in a good spot. And let me see. Jeremy Hobbs is in here. What's up? It do be a good tool. He's right. If you guys don't know Jeremy, he's awesome. He has been working with me and we've been shooting content together. We know each other since high school. He's a business partner. He works with our wedding company. Awesome, awesome guy. Love that he's here in the chat. Hobbs, you're the man. You're the man. Histograms are a good tool. All right. Hopefully that answers your question. We're going to get to some Q&A here in just a little bit, so stay tuned for that. But let's go ahead and get through just a few more pre-selected questions, and then we can kind of hang out and I can answer a few of your questions here in the chat. So, how to know if this light is flickering. All right, so the grammar's a little weird, but basically flickering. It's an issue that they've been suffering from. What's the case of good lighting for this? Okay. A little weird grammar, but that's all right. We're going to talk about this. Flickering. Flickering sucks. I hate flickering. What is flickering? If you don't know, I'm going to show you. So let's do this. All right. Yeah, let's do this. I'm about to change my camera settings really crazy. Okay. So just bear with me. It's going to look wacky for a second, but it's for a purpose. So just hang in there. I'm going to turn these backlights off too. Wow. What a shot. Come on. That's great. So you see all these lines. We don't like these lines. These lines aren't good. These are not the type of lines. These are bad. So anyways, it's not what you want. This is that flickering that they're probably referring to, where you see all these scan lines in your image. Why does this happen? Well, there's two types of cameras. There are rolling shutter cameras and there are global shutter cameras. Kind of confusing. Let me explain. Most DSLR and mirrorless cameras are rolling shutter, which means they're sort of scanning the image as bands across the screen as the video goes. Then there's global shutter, where the shutter's just always there. Most consumer level, even prosumer level cameras, like again, a lot of Sony's mirrorless and a lot of DSLR cameras are going to be rolling shutter. And this is going to be part of this issue with the scan lines. I believe some cameras like Blackmagic are global, I think. Anyways, for a lot of us, great cameras, but they have this caveat. So again, this is not an issue if you get lights that are flicker free. Okay. So let me turn on my background lights, right? And I'll turn this light off. I'm going to turn these, I'll just leave them there, but there's no more scan lines, right? These are flicker free video lights, which means no scan lines rolling across the screen. which is great. Now, these are more expensive than this $50 softbox light, which works really well until you need to raise your shutter. Okay. So let's talk about that for a sec. Let's go back to this key light. So what's happening is when I raise my shutter speed super, super fast, now I'm starting to see these inconsistencies in the refresh rate of the key light. So basically, this cheaper flickering video light, you can't really see it flicker with your actual eye, but the camera will pick it up when using these insanely fast shutter speeds. Right now, I'm at 1 over 4,000 shutter speed, and you're really starting to see these scan lines. So, how do we fix this? Well, pretty much you won't notice this if you're shooting at the proper shutter speed for your video frame rate, which I'm shooting at 24 frames per second, which means my shutter speed should be 1 over 50. So let me take my shutter speed to 1 over 50, and I'm going to bring my ISO way down into a nicer, happier spot. Okay. And now there's no more scan lines because it's a lot slower of a shutter speed. Somehow, with the way that the camera is capturing the image as it rolls and the amount of time that the shutter speed is taking, everything's happy. It's good. But as I start to raise my shutter speed, right, I'm going to start to notice those scan lines more. Let me take up my ISO. And again, we're pretty high right now. We're at 1 over 800. Let me go. All right. So right about when I get to 2000 is when I'm starting to see it. So something to be aware of. Let me get it back to normal. My biggest advice here is like if you do have a flickering light, just don't shoot at high shutter speeds. Shoot at your proper shutter speeds for video, which is double your frame rate, and you'll be in a happy place for the most part. Let me get everything back to normal. It's enough of that. Enough of those crazy scan lines. So hopefully that makes sense. It's getting really in depth, but this is an issue that you can run into when using these mirrorless cameras or DSLR cameras and RGB lights. Now, again, not every light is going to have this issue. This is usually going to be the cheaper ones, which a lot of times I do recommend on this channel because if you know what you're doing, you can work around this stuff very, very easily. But if you buy, like I've got a bigger softbox that's a couple $100 that's made for video work and there's no issue. It's perfectly good. There's no flickering going on there. So research your light. If you're worried about that, look for one that is flicker free and it will be good. So hopefully that will help you guys. I first noticed this stuff when I was doing content creation for churches, right? So, a lot of modern churches have those fancy stage lights. It looks like a concert a little bit, and they're LED lights. There's also LED screens. Also, you may notice flickering happening on your camera from computer screens. Same sort of situation. So, something to be aware of. All right. So, I would be shooting at churches. I would notice all this flickering going on. I was like, why do I have these weird scan lines? It made me research it more, and this is just what I've found to be the case. There's lights for music and live events, and then there's also lights for video work and live streaming and movies, and there's different elements that go into them for different needs, right? So do your research, look for a video light that is flicker free. You won't have to worry about it at all. All right. Sound good? Sound good? Okay, I think we're moving on to about one of our last questions, so let's check that out. This question comes in from my friend Andrew. How do you avoid casting shadows when lighting a room? How do you avoid casting shadows when lighting a room? And I don't know exactly the situation, but I'm going to try to guess. We'll see. My guess is that you're trying to film an interview of somebody, maybe yourself, maybe somebody else, and you point the light at them, right? And then you see shadows on the wall, or you see shadows in the background, or you see shadows somewhere you don't want to see shadows. Most of the time this happens, and let me see if I can give an example, maybe using this really powerful GVM light. I'm going to turn my key light off, and I'm going to turn this on. It's going to blind me probably, but worth it. Let's see if I can get, all right. You see this shadow? Let me do this other side. Boom. See, as I move the light, this shadow on the wall behind me, we don't want that shadow. That shadow is annoying. Get that shadow out of here. All right. So we see that and we're like, I don't want that. Easy way to fix it. Use diffusion, get a softbox, make that shadow a lot less, or raise the light up and the shadow will start to go lower. Okay. So straight on to the side, about a 45-degree angle, straight on, as in eye level with me. Shadow behind me. Elevate it up a bit, shadow goes below me. Okay. Easy way to get rid of the shadow and get your image looking good and clean. All right. Something to understand, anytime there's light, hold on. I'm sorry. I messed that up. I didn't realize the title was on. I'm still new at this. We're going to show this again. Hopefully this will work all right. Boom. Okay. You guys see the shadow now? Can you guys see it? Yep. Okay. Shadow's behind me. Eye level, straight on. I'm going to raise this up. See the shadow as I raise it, starting to go below me. Boom. It's gone. Okay. So again, it's a quick tip to kind of, make that work better for you. That was really bright. That light is super powerful. Again, if you're interested in, a light like that, I've got it linked down in the description. It's the Pixel G2 Pocket RGB light, and it is awesome. One of my favorite lights of the year. Okay, I think that is hopefully giving you guys some value. I think we might have one more question, so let me check that out. Yeah, we got one more. So, can you please state a collection of effective lighting equipments that comes with cheaper prices? A lot of us would definitely appreciate that a lot. Thanks, Bolts Tech Talk. I can. So again, if you're looking for budget RGB lights, budget key lights, budget is a relative word, right? A lot of people's budgets are different. You talk to a filmmaker who is a professional, their budget could be $2,000. You talk to a new YouTuber that's just getting into the game, their budget could be, $50 or even less. And so whatever your budget is, I've got content on my channel. Just hop on over to it. I've got even some links right here in this video description that you'll be able to check out that covers my best recommended RGB lights that I've came across in my research and usage for all budgets, $0 to $500. Same with key lights. So I'm really passionate about trying to help equip you guys so that you can crush it on your channels and you can crush it in your content creation. So hopefully that will help you. I'm not going to list out everything right here, but check out some of these lights that I'm talking about now and check out the channel. I make a lot of content about that and hopefully it will help you. Hopefully it will help you. So we're getting into the point of the video where we are going to spend a little bit of time doing some Q&A. All right, some Q&A. So let's talk. All right, John, I see your question. Does anyone know if the G2 suffers from flickering? I see this with LED lights. We just covered flickering. And no, it does not. I have not noticed it messing with the RGB. It's been really good. I've shot at super high shutters, no issue. In my book, it works pretty well. So hopefully that answers your question, John. Guys, if you've got questions, now is the time. We're diving into this thing full force, all right? Dolly, how close is the key light to your face? I don't have a measuring tape right now, but if I had to guess, it's literally right here. So maybe 2 feet. I would say 2 feet. And I'm running it at 20%. Again, I'm going to talk about this real quick because I think it's important. A lot of times people will buy their light and bam, they're going 100%. Can you do this? Yes. So what's going to end up happening is you'll need to turn your exposure down, right? If you're running your key light all the way bright. So I'm going to turn my exposure down. And I just lost a lot of that cozy, warm color from the background because this light is now bleeding into the shot. It's splashing it all over the place. It's like wherever there was that nice, warm, goldeny color, it's gone because this light is overpowering it. So something to think about. Again, Can you do it? Yes. And in some cases, you do want to run it full. So you want to light up the whole room. Cool. But in a lot of cases, you don't need to. Again, I'm going to go down to 20% brightness on this right now. Raise my exposure up a little bit in the camera, which will in turn raise up the background color a little bit. Don't go too far. If you run your ISO way too high, you'll start to get grain. So learn your camera, learn the limitations. Hopefully that helps. Hopefully that helps. All right, looking around, looking around. Give me a second, guys. I'm reading these comments. Ah, yes. Okay. Bill Helm, the Bill Helm. What's up? Yes, that light is something I recommended in, my lighting for YouTube videos, video that kind of blew up and helped grow my channel. That is linked in the description below as well. If this is overwhelming you and you're like, I don't know what a key light is and a fill light and a rim light, check out that video. It explains all of it in a concise way. It only takes a couple minutes. So this light is an awesome light, and I'm really bummed that they seem to have discontinued it. Hopefully they'll come up with a more renewed version of it. Again, my recommendation would probably be something I really love to use as a rim light is the Yongnuo YN360 bar light. You'll see that in my budget RGB lighting video, which is linked in the description. I would recommend that. Really, really good light. All right, so let's see. Looking at the comments. Good question. So when doing lighting, this is Magnivore. What's up, Magnivore? When doing lighting, always start in a dark room / lights off. My thought with that would be when you can, yes, unless you know you want to have certain things happening. So if you're like in a room with a lot of windows and you want the windows, then obviously leave the windows because it will change if you close them and open them, right? But if you're shooting in a room like this, like I don't actually have windows in this room. And if I did, I would black them out. And I love starting with a clean slate. Again, I know I want my light bulb background here, and I get a little bit of glow from my computer screen right here. But just because I know I want those things, I will start with those there and work around them a little bit. And so then I'll, maybe add in my background lighting first and kind of see what that's looking like, kind of get the positioning good and the color good and figure out where I want that. And then maybe I'll throw in my key light. So there's different strategies, different approaches, but yes, I think when possible, start with a blacked out room just so you can see what each light is doing on its own and then how it all meshes together. All right. Elizabeth, do you do auto white balance? No. Auto white balance is bad. Don't do it. The reason it's bad for video, especially. Hold on. I need to get some water. I've been doing a lot of talking. I'm passionate about this topic. Okay, so auto white balance, good or bad? For vlogging, good. Most of the time, sure. For a controlled setup, bad. Why? Especially if you have a room with windows. You'll set your camera, you'll get it perfect. Everything looks splendid and good and great. You go to record, and then you get your video back later in the editing stage, and you notice, hey, why did 2 minutes in it switch to be super blue? Or why is it really warm now? It's because the camera is trying to decide what the white balance is, and if there's natural light coming in, that can change, right? So you have the daylight spilling in from the windows. It can be cloudy 1 second and clear the next. There's so many variables, and the camera isn't going to know what you want it to do. So that's why I would choose to lock it in. And once you lock it in, it will stay, for the most part, very consistent. And then you'll know what you're going to get. So I use custom white balance. So on my camera, I can go into the settings and choose the exact Kelvin that I want my white balance to be. And I do that and I lock it in. And then I set my light to it and boom, everything's in place. And again, if you are unsure about how to do that stuff, check out my free, super simple camera settings guide. I think it will really help you out. You can check this out at supersimplecamerasettings.com. and I go into all the details about ISO, white balance, shutter speed, aperture, video resolution, frame rates, all those fancy words that can be confusing when you're first starting out. I try to simplify it as much as possible to get it really, really short and concise for you guys. So definitely use manual white balance and go check that out. Hopefully it will help you out. All right. Adam and stuff. You just answered two of my questions. Awesome. That's my goal. I'm glad. All right. So let's see. Scrolling through. Great question. Magnivore. When using a backdrop that you light up with color, how far should you sit from the backdrop? I would say I'm probably like 3.5, 4 feet from this backdrop right now. And I'd say that's a good place to start when possible. A couple feet. Why? Because the light that you're lighting the backdrop with, it needs a little bit of space to spread, right? So if you're right up against it, for example, I'm right up against my hand, right? And, or I'm right up against here. It's only hitting like a small part of my body, right? But as I move it away, it starts to hit more, right? So it spreads. So figure out how far your light needs to spread to fill the area that you want to fill and adjust accordingly. That would be my advice. I know there's so many variables, there's smaller rooms, I get it. I'm just saying that that's my thought process on it. All right. So got this question. Just starting out, new on YouTube, want you to recommend me the best lighting options on a budget. Max is 500. You're in luck. Check the links in the description. I've got a ton of lights that I recommend ranging from $0 to $500, full RGB in the description below. Thanks for asking. It's there. Check it out. All right, let's see. Okay. Interesting question again from Elizabeth. How to deal with lights getting you warm/sweaty? Cool. Interesting question. I think that LED lights in general are not really going to do this as much as other lights. Okay, so like traditional halogen bulbs are like those big stage lights, or like those big warm glowy lights that you see in movies. Those get hot. Those get super hot. LED lights like the softbox here and some of the other lights in this room, they don't really get hot at all. They're very cool to the touch. I think people think that the lights make them warmer, but I would recommend a fan. Run it until you're ready to record. I usually do that. Helps. Yeah, I think it's honestly a lot of times it's that rush that you get when recording, sitting in front of camera, moving around, talking louder than you normally do, sitting up straight. That's kind of what will get you more warm and sweaty. I'm starting to get a little warm. But yeah, I don't think it's the lights as much, especially if you're rocking LEDs. So I'd recommend LEDs. Okay. Looking through. Give me a second, guys. Reading the comments. Thank you guys so much for hanging out, by the way. I'm going to try to understand this, but important question. Okay. Trying to build small business, wedding decoration and lighting. What will I need for the perfect lighting, and how should I place the lights for getting perfect photos? So it sounds like it's more of a photo booth. Is that what you're doing? If that's the case, then it's going to be an interesting challenge. Every room you go into will be different. I would recommend maybe trying to create something that the guests can sort of walk into, sort of box style. Will help you control the light from all the ambient spillage of different rooms and outdoors. I've seen stuff with like inflatable houses, basically, that people can kind of, not a house, but like an inflatable little room that people can walk into. I've ran those type of photo booths before. those work really good. And then once you get them in this enclosed environment, you can control all the lights in it. So that would be my biggest suggestion. Hopefully that helps. Or even just backdrops with cloths kind of help block the light, and then you can control it. And then in addition to that, I'd get a softbox and whatever type of lighting you'd like. All right. Question from Modest Mommy. Did you go to school for this, Ben? Your knowledge is mind blowing. Thank you. Um, kind of. I sort of went to school for it. I went to a local community college, and I did TV production in high school. But then in college, I did local community stuff, and it was just very outdated. We were still, it wasn't that long ago that I went, and we were still logging tapes on camcorders and some stuff like that. So it's not that it didn't learn anything there, but a lot of it I had already learned on YouTube. So I would say that I learned a lot from YouTube, and that's one of the reasons why I started my channel, was just to kind of give back to the same community that helped me start my business. I'm really passionate about it because I know how valuable these type of videos can be when you apply them. So I did go to school. I stopped going to school. I actually talked to one of my film teachers, and I was like, hey, I want to do this, as be a content creator, freelancer, work with businesses. Should I just start, or do you think I should keep going to school? And he basically told me to just start and stop going to school. So in the creative field, I'm not trying to bash school. I'm not trying to bash college. But in the creative field, with all of the resources that are available to us today, whatever platforms they are, courses online, YouTube's, stuff like Skillshare, whatever it is, there's so many good options for us to learn. You just got to be driven. You just got to apply yourself. You just got to be ready to put in the hard work. It's not easy to spend hours of your day when you could be going doing other stuff learning. But when you do, you can get a lot further faster. So, and hopefully my channel will be this for some of you as well. That's my goal, at least. So give this video a like if you're getting value out of it, and we'll keep on going. Let's see. What bulbs do you recommend, or do you prefer LED? Personally, I much prefer LED. I think that they're a lot more flexible and can get a lot more out of them, which I think is really good. Really good. So, reading some more. Kelvin, really cool name, by the way. Kelvin, that's awesome. We're talking a lot about Kelvin today. It's not you, it's the lighting setting. But regardless, you're saying you're running low ISO, you're still getting some grain in the dark areas. Do I know what caused it and how to fix it? I would be curious to see what your video settings are, and what lens you're using as well. Here, what I'll tell you to do, Kelvin, if you don't mind, go ahead and message me on Instagram. And if any of you guys have questions, DM me on Instagram at Ben Johnson Creative. I try my best to go through them when I can. Sometimes I'm a few days behind, but if you've got questions, I will try to answer them. So send me some more information about your shot, and we can try to get to the bottom of it. I would guess something to do with the settings on the lens. Most of the time, though, grain is going to be caused from ISO. So let's dive into that. I'm actually curious myself. All right, let's go back to the comments. We're gonna be wrapping this up real quick. All right. Let me scroll through, see if I missed anything. You guys are great, by the way. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being a part of everything. Zach, I missed your question earlier. I'm so sorry. Let's see. What's the best tube stick light for YouTube videos? I don't know. I haven't used all of the tube lights available. There's a couple that I still really want to try before I can answer that fully. But to the knowledge of what I have tried, I'm using the Godox TL60 tube lights. Really like them a lot. Running them at like 14% right now. Let's turn them up. Let's see what they do, because they can get pretty bright and do a ton of different stuff. They're 2 feet long. really easy to use. Boom, running them like crazy now. Different colors, cool. They've got effects, tons of different. Wow, I'm in a lightning storm. Boom, really cool. You know, got the full spectrum of colors. I love tube lights. They're super fun to do. To mess around with. Let me turn the brightness down again. The thing about tube lights is they work as a rim light and a background light at the same time, and a practical because they look cool in the shot, right? So that's my thought with tube lights, is that you can accomplish so much with fewer things. So rather than having, a hair light and two lights like splashing the background and having other lights in the shot, I just have the two tube lights. So it's, again, let me turn my key light off so I can show you. Turn these off. Nothing's happening. Tube lights are on. They're hitting the background, and there's this rim around me. See the light, the rim around my shoulders, my head, a little bit of my hat. Then we turn the key light on, and the rim is still there, so I'm still popping off the background, but I still got those lights going on. So TL60 tube light kit, really solid, easy to use, just simple, and I like them a lot. All right, Dennis, can you use grid for the shadows? No. So the grid is going to help with the highlights. All right. So the grid is going to help disperse it's going to help with the highlight sharpness. And it's going to make that a little less harsh. And the shadows comes into play with having a large light source and getting it close to you. That's going to help with the shadows. All right. All right. Reading through any other last minute ones. All right, Andreas, sitting with windows on two sides. Is that a good idea? No, I don't think it is. If you can avoid it, shoot in a different room, change your angle, change that completely. That would not be my go-to. You're going to get two window lights crashing onto the sides of your face when really what you want is, I'm going to turn this background light off again. I've got this light slightly elevated off frame, about 2 feet away, angled down, kind of coming in at me like this, creating this nice drop shadow, little bit of a Rembrandt triangle, nice soft light here. That's the position you really want to have the light at. And you can change it, of course, as the creator. If you intentionally want to have the sides, it could be a look. But for the most part, this will be a more flattering look for you. So I would avoid the windows. Close them off, shoot somewhere else. That'd be my recommendation. John Paul, how am I controlling these different products with just one remote? I've got two remotes. I'm doing trickery. I've got two remotes, one for the tube lights, one for the key light. I wish I had one remote. That'd be cool. Maybe somebody should make that. I don't know. Let's see. Cool, guys. I think we're about ready to wrap it up. We've been streaming for about an hour. That's what I was aiming for. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. Absolutely love getting to do this Q&A with you guys. Hopefully we can do something like this again soon. I hope this helped you. I just wanted to get some content out there. I wanted to have a little bit, break down that wall of editing. I love editing. Editing's my favorite part of the process. But sometimes I think the editing can get in the way of just that instant feedback, that instant, communication. So I wanted to just show you all this stuff, get all my thoughts out there. And yeah, so again, this video will be available for replay. If you have other questions, please go back and watch the video, skim through it. I talked about a lot of stuff in here, and hopefully this will add value to you guys. So love you guys. Thank you so much for hanging. You're the best. And connect with me on Instagram, subscribe, turn on notifications, and as always, stay creative. Peace.